Hey everyone, welcome to Talking Tokens, a podcast focused on interviewing the best crypto founders, market players, and up-and-coming startups that are changing the industry every single Tuesday and Thursday. I'm Jacquelyn Melinek, your award-nominated host and former senior crypto reporter turned entrepreneur, and I'm excited to be here with you all. Now, let's get into it. Today's guest is Marshall Hayner, the co-founder and CEO of Metallicus, and he's also a board member of the Dogecoin Foundation. Marshall has been in the crypto industry for over a decade and co-founded Metallicus in 2016 as a customer-centric digital asset banking network built with blockchain technology. The company more recently also launched its layer 2 blockchain called Metal L2 with the Optimism superchain as it focuses on banking on blockchains, which I'm sure we'll talk about more in a minute. With all that said, Marshall, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. To start off, can you kind of tell us about how you even got into the crypto space over a decade ago?
Yeah, so it goes all the way back to about 20 years ago, 2002, when I went to undergrad in Boston. I was at Northeastern University and discovered Facebook. I was one of the early Facebook people back then when you had to have a college campus email address to get in, early days. And, I was just very much involved with technology as a hobby, as a passion. I was kind of like an amateur coder and liked to play around. And shortly around that same time, I discovered BitTorrent, which was a really cool, there's actually a little bit of a segue here, and I'll spare all the details, but some people might remember this thing called Napster back in the day.
Of course.
The founder of Napster was actually at Northeastern. I thought that was so cool. And I got into this idea of decentralized networks and distributed networks. So Napster was kind of the first crack at that. And then there was this thing called Direct Connect, where the college campuses were sharing, movies and things like that. And it was kind of a very basic network. And then I discovered BitTorrent. And I thought this is something really interesting because flashback 20 years ago, internet speeds weren't what they are today, right? But BitTorrent allowed you to harness the full power of your internet speed, where you could download from multiple sources at once. So you could have 5 different sources, and instead of trying to download a file in one piece, you could get it in these different chunks. And this whole idea of decentralized internet wasn't just about the speed to download a file, but the fact that it could be uncensorable or that it could be distributed. And that idea got my brain going, and I got very involved in BitTorrent communities and just this exciting idea of like, hey, we're rebuilding the Library of Alexandria. We could have all this information, and it will never get burnt down, right? And it's distributed all over the web. And that was very cool. Flash forward to 2009, I discovered Bitcoin through a forum where somebody was talking in BitTorrent forums about how they could get paid as an artist. And lots of ideas were thrown around using PayPal or this or that, but nothing really materialized. And one person said Bitcoin. And I said, is that like anything to do with BitTorrent? And I started searching about it, and I find the P2P Foundation, the early first Bitcoin conversations. And I thought it was really interesting. This was 2009 when I lived in Boston. A few years later, I ended up moving to San Francisco. Not really knowing what I wanted to do, but I could see the tech environment that I, wanted to be a part of. And after discovering Bitcoin, I just became obsessed. This idea that money could be decentralized in the same way that data was, I thought this was, something that was really passionate about. It only took a few years for me to realize, okay, this is my calling. I'm spending all my time on this. This is what I want to do. And so I built my first crypto startup in 2013 called QuickCoin. A few years after I'd gotten into Bitcoin, I recognized that there were no easy ways to use this. So I tried to share it. I remember giving cab drivers several Bitcoin as a tip when that was only like $30,
Let's hope they held on to it.
Yeah, here's 3 Bitcoin. It's $10 each, right? No big deal. But we wanted to prove that we could use it. It was about this really cool vision. But can you actually use it? Could you actually buy something with it? And that was the very beginning. Nowadays, people are talking about using Bitcoin as a store of value or for saving or something like that. So I got in very early and started experimenting within the first few years, built QuickCoin. We used the Facebook social graph to leverage people's friend networks and family. So they could create a Bitcoin wallet by just signing up with your Facebook account. and then you could send it over wall post or messenger. And that grew really quickly because it was fun and friendly and easy to use. A few years later in 2016, I formed Metallicus with my co-founder and CTO, Glenn Marion, who I met in the Dogecoin community. He built the first Dogecoin wallet. It's a long story, but
for sure.
yeah, crypto is such a small world. We all know each other, and we really hit it off, and we formed Metallicus with the vision of making crypto easy to use and to bridge traditional finance to decentralized finance, the banks to the blockchain. We saw that as an inevitable future. We started with Metal Pay, which was simply the idea of the crypto Venmo, and flash forward to 2024, Venmo has crypto, and now we're building the digital asset banking network.
What do you think are some common denominators that existed when you first got into the space that are still here today? Because you've seen the evolution of it for sure, from giving out a bunch of Bitcoins to creating companies. What do you think is elements that still ring true to the industry?
I think there's still a lot of learning to do. I think there's a lot of UX or user experience work around applications and software in the cryptocurrency space because it's still kind of foreign to people. You're still seeing, the public-private key interaction where, you're told, hey, back up this private key if you're using a non-custodial wallet. And even all this language that I'm using right now, it's foreign to the average person, right?
Yeah,
it sounds like a bunch of jargon and yeah, exactly. And so I think that's what is still there, right? We're still early in the crypto space because I'm a child of the internet of the 80s and 90s, and I can think back to a time when people were using email servers like SMTP. So in the 90s, when people were saying, "Oh yeah, I'll set up my email with a Microsoft Outlook or whatever," that was kind of the early days of email, right? In the same way, it's the early days of crypto. Nowadays, nobody would mention anything like that. Everybody's got a Gmail address. It's very simple. You don't have to, know how to take apart the car to drive it, so to speak, right? So I think that's the big problem that we still have from 10 years ago or 14 years ago till today. I think that those problems still persist. So we're starting to make it easier with apps like Metal Pay. Now you have Venmo has, like I mentioned, cryptocurrency added into it, PayPal. Eventually, all this stuff will become ubiquitous. You'll see it inside your bank. You'll see it inside fintech apps. And you won't have to know about all of a public-private key cryptography or backing up seed phrases. Right. I think once we eliminate the idea of having to have a 12-word seed phrase or a piece of paper that would back up your crypto, then we've made it.
Right. But do you think that would be substituted with something that we have already today in like the Web 2 world?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the vision of Apple, right, like what Tim Cook has done with Apple ID and started with Steve Jobs' Face ID, that has evolved into an open standard with web authentication and passkeys. So now that Face ID interaction isn't constrained to just Apple products. It could be anything in Safari and Chrome. So I think in the future, it's going to be biometrics, your device biometrics. And so you'll be able to authenticate. And we've started to build out this technology at Metallicus with our webauth.com wallet. As the name sounds, web authentication. We want every app to be able to use web authentication, because why should you have to leave the browser to open up some third-party app to do something financial in the browser? And that's really kind of the vision, is that everything will be seamless in the future. If you go to a crypto website, it'll just recognize your face. You won't have to, type in some passcodes or different things. And when it comes to losing crypto in the next 10 years, you'll never hear that again. You'll never hear anyone say, "Oh, I lost my crypto," or that famous episode in Silicon Valley where they're searching through the dump for the missing USB drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be kind of like a historical remnant, I think, in a few years.
For Metallicus, it's been around for about 8 years now, according to my simple math. What do you think has been the biggest change and also the biggest strategy that you've held on to? Because obviously, companies evolve, they change over time, and the crypto market is extremely volatile, but it's also very innovative. So things change very quickly in this space. How do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, we've always had a North Star at Metallicus, and we've really stuck to that, which is payments and banking. So, you know, and it's funny because in crypto, I frequently tell my team and, you know, everyone will listen to this idea that 1 day equals 10. So when we celebrate someone's 1 year anniversary, I say, congratulations, you've made it a decade in crypto.
Right.
So it moves so fast that it feels like that. And crypto kind of goes through these cycles where every few months there's a new narrative, whether it's artificial intelligence or it's at one point it was NFTs. Right now it seems to be kind of like celebrity meme coins, not my favorite, but it's, you know, they move through these cycles. And, you know, at different times I've heard people say, hey, you should pivot to NFTs or you should do that. But we've always had our North Star with banking and payments. And that's where we started was, you know, what got me so excited about being in the space and the technology was that I'll be alive and be a part of the transition in banking and payments. And I think that is and not just like it's like some new area of technology that kind of mildly improves our lives, but I think something that will radically change business and change the way that money works. And, you know, I think we're starting to see that, and that thesis has been proven right, because if you look at the presidential election this year, it's become a topic during the election, which tells me that it's a very big matter. You see the central banks preparing to issue central bank digital currencies and kind of having this interaction with public blockchains and what might that future look like. And so I really do feel that over the next few years, this will transform business in the same way that email transformed business over using the fax machine, right? If you think about how much faster things move now, 20, 30 years ago, you can't even compare it. When the money starts to move at that speed and contracts and settlement starts to move in a matter of seconds versus days, I think a lot of things will change in a better way.
No, for sure. And I think you guys have a number of products right now, kind of testing out that theory and the strategy, seeing where like the interest is. Where do you see the most demand for all your products? And what would you say is like the ideal user for your platform?
Yeah, we started with the MetalPay app in 2018. So we started in the hard place, as they say in consumer, where it's the thankless business of consumer payments, right? Where you can't charge for anything.
Right.
And so yeah, it's tough, you know, and we realized, hey, at first there was no PayPal involved in crypto. And then we quickly realized this was a great place for us to cut our teeth and to learn about how everything works on the front lines of consumer. And we've slowly started to pivot it to enterprise and B2B as we build these technologies for banks, credit unions, financial institutions. So that's really kind of the direction that the company has started to, I guess, if it has pivoted at all, it's really started to move in that direction of, hey, we learned by being out in the front lines, by being the consumer, building the consumer apps. And now as we're starting to build the infrastructure and the technology behind that, it really serves us to have that understanding when we talk to our partners and say, we know exactly what your customers experience and how we can make a better experience, a safer experience around cryptocurrency and blockchain, but also how can we kind of obfuscate a lot of that away so you don't really have to even know about that or feel any pain around that. It's more so, oh, it was that fast, it was that easy, I just transferred. Normally takes, you know, a few days for my payment to hit or for a wire to go through, or it's after 2 p.m. and we just made this transaction at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, but it went through, and maybe between countries. That's, you know, the experience that we want to create with what we're doing with Metal Blockchain and Metal L2 and building our banking layer. So a lot of experience learned from just, I guess, building that consumer product and having learning from all the mistakes and pitfalls. And we realized there were a lot of holes in the industry because a lot of these technologies, look at credit cards, for example, they were designed literally, 60 years ago, and they weren't really built for the modern internet, but we keep kind of adding band-aids on top of it. And I really see blockchain technology as kind of this leapfrog over the old system to the new system.
I definitely see the value, of course, like I'm in this industry, but I'm concerned that people outside of this industry see it as like this difficult, hard to use thing. They don't understand even the most basic of terms, or basic to us at least. So how do you kind of approach audiences that are not even coming anywhere near this industry, but you think there is an advantage to them using it if they learned it?
Yeah, so this is a great question because it's exactly where Metal started with MetalPay. I wanted to allow people to earn some cryptocurrency without having to know how to do Bitcoin mining or Dogecoin mining or be a Ethereum validator or something. That was before
Right.
Ethereum had proof of stake, but
hmm
I wanted people to be able to earn it in a human way. Not that mining is inhuman or something, but it's very technical, right? And your
Right.
average
In like an
person.
easy to learn way.
Exactly. And so I created this concept called proof of process payment, where when you would make a payment, a peer-to-peer payment with MetalPay, and this is no longer, but existed for the first few years of the app, you could make a payment and you would earn a little bit of crypto. And there were people that would start to transition everything. So they were, got their landlord on the app. They were, paying all their bills between friends on the app, and they were all popping and earning some metal cryptocurrency. A lot of people had an amazing experience with that because there were people that would say, I hate the idea of crypto, or it's too complicated and foreign to me. I don't want to interact with it.
hmm
And we got them into the app. And several years later, some of them are even messaging me now and saying, hey, I got a job in the crypto space and I love crypto. It's so cool. Or even just, I started to play with this and I've learned so much about money, about where it comes from, how it's created, how it's destroyed. I never even knew what a dollar really was until I started researching crypto, and it triggered me to go down this rabbit hole of exploration of the history of money. And a lot of people have that learning experience. And so I think you really have to kind of give it to people. You have to have some sort of rewarding experience that's more akin to what we're used to with like our credit cards. Like I get points on my credit card and then I can use that for vacations or flights. Well, what if you got some crypto? And I think more and more we're seeing more products like that. But also I believe that those points and all different types of digital assets will be tokenized on the blockchain eventually. I believe securities, you'll see points, gaming points, loyalty points. You're starting to see the beginning of these so-called meme tokens and celebrities. I made a video for when we were starting Metallicus in 2016. And in the video, I say, everyone will have a coin in the future, every brand, every
And they
person.
can now, yeah.
It's funny to see it so many years later, 8 years later, and say, wow, that was really right. But if I could think of back then what I imagined it would be like, it would be nothing like what it's actually like today. But it was true. And so I think as all of that stuff starts to converge together and become simpler, when you move between apps, if I'm in Revolut and I move between PayPal and I move between Venmo, or I go to Zelle or something, I should be able to link my identity between these things, and they should be able to move assets between each other. And imagine in the future when credit cards, the whole points thing is out the window, and now the points are just part of your identity that follows you around when you Face ID in different apps. And I think that that's where blockchain will take us. And you won't have to know how it works either. It'll just happen.
I want to talk about your new L2 metal in a minute, but you brought up meme coins, which made me think of Dogecoin, which kind of started off as like a funny dog themed cryptocurrency. And you're on the board for the Dogecoin Foundation, which, if I'm being honest, I did not know there was a foundation for that. What does that entail? What does that look like for you? Tell us everything.
This podcast is sponsored by Galaxy, and if you're immersed in the world of Web3, Galaxy is a name you need to know. As a decentralized super app with an impressive 21 million users boasting over 100 million monthly transactions, Galaxy is elevating its impact with Gravity, the magnet chain for Web3. Gravity is designed for full chain abstraction, zero knowledge proof-based privacy, and rapid transaction speeds, all coming together to offer an unparalleled user experience. Gravity opens the door for developers to effortlessly build on the largest on-chain distribution platform, and for users, it promises an even smoother, more secure journey through Web3. It's not about being on-chain, it's about being on the right chain every single time. Galaxy is on a mission to onboard the world to Web3, and Gravity is the magnetic force that will propel that vision forward. Ready to launch your Web3 journey? Build the future on Gravity. Visit gravity.xyz for more information.
Yeah, sure. So my love with Dogecoin came about in late 2013 when it was created. Some people messaged me and said, hey, do you know anything about, and they wrote like Dogecoin. And I was like, what is that? So I searched and I found it on Bitcoin Talk, which was kind of like the OG crypto forum. And this guy Jackson and Billy were experimenting with it. And they had basically, it was Jackson's idea that he wanted to create this joke. He thought cryptocurrency was so, stupid and ridiculous. And in a way, it kind of is, right? When everything's moving so fast, you kind of have to laugh a little bit at some of like the absurdity of how fast things move. And so Jackson took this iconic meme of the Shiba Inu dog, Kobosu, rest in peace, who passed away recently.
Rest in peace.
Very sad. My heart goes out to Kobosu and and everyone in the community. It started as a joke. It was just this funny thing. And Jackson found Billy on Bitcoin Talk forum, and he said, hey, I've been experimenting with coins. He had previously made something called Lucky Coin. And so it kind of grew from there. After I discovered it, I reached out to Jackson and said, what is this? Is it a joke? And he said, yeah, it's a total joke. And for me, it was actually the perfect timing because crypto had gone through these cycles, as I'd mentioned, and we were kind of in this depressive cycle where we had gone all the way up to over $1,000 and back down to 200. And you'd go to conferences and everybody would be so down in the dumps, and people would say, oh, is crypto over? Is it dead? And I just needed to be like, let me show you this funny dog coin, right? Like
look how much it's up. Yeah.
It was just, it was fun. As I mentioned, I was giving out crypto early on. I was trading it. And so the Dogecoin thing was awesome because it attracted young people, and it also kind of vibed with my sense of humor. If we could treat money like a joke, we could start to break down borders and walls between people about this conversation that I think is sometimes a little, when you talk to some hardcore Bitcoiners, you feel a little overwhelmed sometimes, like you're being lectured or whatever. Yeah. But Dogecoin was, wow, such fun, much Doge. Here's a million Doge. And I have so many fun stories from it. But I got involved very early on, loved the community, Jackson, Billy, and Christine, and Jackson, and all friends of mine. Jackson was an advisor early on at the company, and he's since gotten out of crypto. But I met Glenn Marion, as I mentioned, through Dogecoin. He built the first Dogecoin wallet, dogewallet.info. And it was basically a very simple wallet. I really loved the product. I loved Glenn. I loved, talking with Glenn, and we spoke to each other in memes. And so we hit it off. And Dogecoin kind of stayed in the background. It just was one of these things like Bitcoin, very close to me, something that maybe I feel emotional about in some ways, in the sense that it's like, this is the origins of crypto. And when people say, oh, Dogecoin has no purpose, it does. Why is it a top 10 crypto? Well, first of all, it's a fork of Bitcoin, so we can do different things on it that are similar to Bitcoin, and sort of like Litecoin, it's almost like the test net to things that could happen on Bitcoin. So in some ways, the future of Bitcoin scaling could depend on Dogecoin, right? And Dogecoin found a way to scale through merge mining with Litecoin when it struggled with proof of work. So Dogecoin has always kind of been this more nimble network than Bitcoin, but very similar. And people don't realize how important that is, even though it has this Kobosu on it. That's the fun community part about it. And so, yeah, I just got involved very early on, was part of the early community, helped organize meetups. I helped organize this event in San Francisco in 2015 called Dogecoin. We organized it. It was awesome. We had
I didn't even know all these happened.
Yeah, it was. I could tell you so many stories, but we just wanted, the early community and the founders, we wanted to put together this event in San Francisco, and all the crypto events had gotten very stuffy, but also as the market had turned south, people were just so down in the dumps. And we were like, let's throw a conference where their dogs are allowed, kids are allowed. We'll have a dance party. We'll have a photo booth. We'll grill up hot dogs, have some beers, and we'll make it a totally not normal conference experience. And we did, and over 1,000 people showed up. We thought only 50 to 100
like
people.
20 of our closest friends. Yeah.
Exactly. Took over the automatic team. WordPress was very nice to lend us their headquarters to throw this event. And it was awesome. Andreas Antonopoulos spoke, and Jesse Powell from Kraken got a bunch of industry leaders. And it was a great time. And these were the kind of things that really just have a place in my heart, that it's like, this is part of the early crypto community. And I always want to support Dogecoin. Always support Bitcoin and Ethereum and a lot of the early cryptos, of course. But Dogecoin was just this, it serves this purpose beyond just money, but it's also about community and welcoming people in. And sometimes crypto has this very intense, scary feeling where people will lecture you about, don't you know about the inflation of the US dollar or something? It's like, I just want to talk about dogs,
Yeah.
So that's what I love about it. And I got the opportunity a few years ago. Dogecoin Foundation was formed in the beginning. It was dissolved for a few years and then spun back up in 2021 or 2021 and came back about. And so I was invited by one of the other foundation members, Jens Weikers, to come and join. And I jumped at the opportunity. I love working on it, have done, like I mentioned, different projects around it. And I just think it's important for those that are in the crypto space for a really long time. You start to, if you really love this space and it's more than just a hobby or a job for you, you kind of start to treat the culture as your own and you protect it. And so, for example, when you see politicians saying, we want to destroy crypto, well, we're going to fight against that. But at the same time, we also want to do it with humor. We want to do it in a lighthearted way. And that's why I connect so much with Dogecoin and just the whole community and the team internally at the foundation, amazing people. So.
Yeah, I didn't realize Dogecoin was that old. I knew it's been around for a very long time, but the early 2010s era of crypto. And I think it's honestly one of, if not the earliest versions of community outside of like seriousness. I don't know. I feel like there's two sides to Bitcoin OGs, the people who were in it for the fun in the early days and like would use it to go like buy things online, or like you said, for artists, to like people who were like, this is the future of the economy, And then the same with like Dogecoin. It's not that serious, but it was a form of community and also creating monetary value out of something that might have been perceived as silly, and has grown into something that, even Elon Musk owns or is passionate about.
Exactly. And I think, I probably share some of his humor in that same way. It's like, I want to work on this cool technology, but at the same time, I want to have fun. I want to have memes involved, and I want to work with fun people. And that's, it's what Dogecoin really attracts. And you do need both of those, right? You need kind of this, very, well, I don't say you need it, but it's good to have people that are rigid and are really, pushing really hard and saying, Bitcoin only or Dogecoin only or whatever. That's good. But then you also need people on the other side of that are welcoming and, maybe not as serious and kind of will, like I said, break the ice, because it's already a complex topic. And then when you throw in this kind of political element, it does turn people off. So I think having, keeping it lighthearted, keeping it fun. And that's really, in crypto, I've seen two different kind of camps emerge. There are the Bitcoin maximalists, right? That were early crypto people that will say, don't do anything else with crypto. Don't do Ethereum. Don't use stable coins.
Bitcoin, not crypto, right?
Exactly, right. And then there are people like myself or like Eric Voorhees that are early Bitcoin people, but at the same time recognize there are all sorts of technology, and we're going to be agnostic in that sense. And we're going to play with whatever we think is fun and cool. And I think it's good for both to exist, because you kind of need to have that balance, that yin and yang between both of those. But ultimately, for crypto to grow, and I've said this many times before, if you only had Bitcoin, somebody brought this up years ago in a space, somebody said, how valuable would Bitcoin be if we didn't have all these other coins distracting and taking away from it? And I said, well, it'd probably be worth like less than $1 then, because there would be no stable coins for price discovery. There would be no competition. In an environment without competition, and you have the monopoly, why would Bitcoin would have never have taken off? And I think it was right about that moment where they kicked me off the space. It was a Bitcoin maxi space, but it's true.
That's a really interesting take. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if, all of our businesses were monopolies. They would all suck, because they would never have to innovate. They'd never have to please their customer, because there's no one to compete with them. So in a thriving business environment, in a thriving economy, and crypto is an economy, you have to have competition. So with that competition, it has really heated everything up, and it's allowed the cream to rise to the top, so to speak. And so, that is what has made Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies valuable, is their competition and ability to thrive in probably one of the fastest moving areas of technology out there, next to AI or nanotechnology or something.
What is your take on meme coins or the other dog focused coins that have kind of proliferated, especially during this current market cycle?
I've never been against meme coins, and I don't want anyone to take this like I'm like a Dogecoin maximalist or anything like that. I feel two ways about it. So there are meme coins that will appear, and it seems like, it's kind of like a scheme or something like that.
They last for like an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
They last for a day.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'm not a huge fan of that, because I don't think that it sends the right message out about crypto, and it's kind of like a gambling type of, hot potato game or something like that. I don't like that. But when a coin is created or a token is created, whether it's a meme or it's a more serious project, if a real community builds around that and there's real decentralization, right? And there are plenty of examples of this outside of Dogecoin, meme coins that have built real communities and start to do stuff. I fully support that. I think that's great. I think that's how all cryptocurrencies evolve, is they start with some sort of vision. And whether that vision is a very serious, intense statement of, the central banks have failed us or something, like the Satoshi statement, not my personal statement. But saying something like that, that's a very hardcore statement. Putting a dog on a coin, that's a lot friendlier and may welcome more people, like I mentioned earlier. So I think that meme coins have a place to exist. I believe cryptocurrency and writing code is like freedom of speech. And so the ability to create coins should, be in every person's capability and company's capability. And we need to, the US needs to catch up to Europe, for example, with MiCA in regulations and clear guidelines from at the federal level. And we're starting to get there, like with the new FIT 21 bill, which is, I think, a great bill. We're starting to see that. But as that emerges, we'll start to see more and more serious meme type projects or fun type projects appear. So any meme project that develops into a real community where people are really doing, building around it and there's real decentralization, I'm all for it. Anything that's a flash in the pan and is, some sort of influencer scheme, I'm against it, because they, like you said, they don't really last very long. And I've always had this idea that a cryptocurrency will thrive as long as there's a community around it. So if there was never a community and it was just a bunch of people yelling in some coin, well, then it's gone, it's dead. But if there's a real community and a vision, and it can outlast the original founder, then it kind of becomes like this organism that just keeps growing and evolving. And that's what I think is really cool.
Yeah, I've seen that before, especially when like developers or people who launch tokens, they just abandon the project because they dumped it, quote unquote, for like 40K, and all of a sudden it's worth like billions of dollars, right? On that note, do you think that tokens without utility, these very community-based tokens or meme coins, serve a purpose in the industry, like as a form of entertainment, or you kind of see them becoming what Dogecoin has become?
Yeah, I think that we're still so early, even though, we're 15 years into cryptocurrency, we're still so early that we're seeing the very beginnings of this, the very beginnings of celeb tokens, meme coins, and things like that. And you can kind of see the difference, right? Like you can see like a 50 Cent or a Jenner or something. It's like clearly something that's, paid by, these KOLs and influencers, and there's all this whatever. And then, for example, you've got like Iggy, right? She goes out and she really tries to make a real community. I'm not endorsing anything here, but I'm just saying. I
know what you mean though, right?
Yeah, there's NFA. A difference. Yeah, there's a difference. Yeah. And I think when the real community is built around something and it starts to take on a life of its own, I do think that amazing things can happen. And I think you're maybe referring to dog with hat, right? It's like there are coins that, could be abandoned and then could suddenly come back to life.
Community take over, right?
Exactly. So it really comes down to vision and values and community. these are really important. And it's one of the things that Dogecoin has, taught us, that you can be a dog on a coin and in fact be one of the most valuable cryptocurrencies out there if you have strong community, strong vision, strong values. And if you go to you go to dogecoin.org right now, you can see, or dogecoin.com, sorry, you can see our manifesto and our value statement. And everyone in the foundation really believes that. We really want to empower people. We want people to have access, freedom of their own money. And so when values are strong, community is strong, if something could die and it could reappear. But yeah, like I said, I think that there's two different camps. There are people that come into crypto and they want to do something like this because they see some short-term financial gain, and those usually don't end very well. And then there are people that come into this space with an open mind, that want to build, that have, strong values, and all of a sudden see, wow, this little idea that I started has become way bigger than me, right? Or maybe I walked away. If you look at, like, it's funny because, Jackson Palmer created Dogecoin. He's no longer involved, and Billy is no longer involved, but he's still very much part of the community. Right. But for example, Jackson walked away and this thing lived on without him, right? And I think that's beautiful. I think it's really cool. It's almost like a piece of art, right? That a song or a piece of artwork could outlive the creator of it.
Or very decentralized. Anyways. Yeah,
exactly.
Shifting gears, I want to get back into Metallicus. You guys launched a layer 2 blockchain earlier this year called Metal L2, and it is a part of Optimism's superchain. Can you kind of tell us the decision behind creating this blockchain and why you decided to join the superchain?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been a big fan of Ethereum. I got to see Vitalik speak in 2014 at Coin Agenda when they were just launching Ethereum, and I knew it was going to be something big. Metal DAO originally launched as an ERC20 on Ethereum, and so we kind of really bet on Ethereum. We've launched a bunch of products around it, an early crypto wallet. And so as we started to build out the company, we realized, we need several things. We need a fast and feeless blockchain, which we built with XPR network. And then we needed a network for banks and credit unions where they could launch their own private ledgers. And ultimately that became Metal blockchain and has grown pretty significantly in the time that we started it, with financial institutions joining very rapidly. But the one thing that we were missing in our ecosystem was the connection to the greater DeFi ecosystem. So we had made this great platform, but it was our own little bubble, our community around Metal and XPR, and was not really tapped into the greater Ethereum ecosystem. And also, one of the things that I love about Optimism, the superchain, was that the Optimism team has built a trustless bridge between Ethereum L1 and the L2s. And soon all of the L2s in the superchain will be able to communicate with each other and move assets between them. So I saw that. I'm a big believer in this interoperability, in this shared network. Right now, blockchain are all these little disparate networks, and you have Solana and you have Ethereum, and there are services to move between them, but for the most part, it's not some sort of seamless thing. You have to go through Coinbase, or you have to go through MetalPay, or you have to go through some app or platform. So with the superchain, our vision was, we started this with Metal blockchain. We started building private ledgers for banks and credit unions and FIs. How do we go from the private ledger to give a gateway to the biggest DeFi system in all of crypto, or DeFi network in all of crypto, which is Ethereum? So we started building Metal L2 with the vision of bridging the banks and credit unions and payment networks to Ethereum. Ultimately, they can have their own network, but if they want assets, for example, USDC, to come in to their ledger or come out, that could be possible through Metal L2. So in building Metal L2, and I guess one of the best ways I've come to describe it is, it's similar to Coinbase Base, but if Base had a token and decentralized governance around it. And so not only that, but also in the kind of Base world, you have Coinbase. In the Metal world, our vision is that we could have every credit union and bank. Now, I don't expect JP Morgan, for example, to be part of that, or the top
never
four
say
banks.
never.
You never know. I'll come revisit this this interview later and say, dang, they joined. But and we've spoken to JP Morgan. They like what we're doing, and I'm a big fan of Onyx. But there are 4,000 other small, mid-size, and large regional banks. There are over 5,000 credit unions across the state or across the country, that's a massive opportunity. Imagine when all of the financial institutions, and the top four only make up I think 15 or 20% of the country's AUM in banks, right? So if the majority of all the credit unions and banks could connect to blockchain, this could be a massive. That could be the very beginning of the decentralized financial web. And so with Metal L2, we seek to bridge that to Metal blockchain and connect all of the 5,000 plus credit unions, 4,500 plus banks across the United States. Maybe not the top four, like I said, or maybe so, but there's a huge opportunity. We look at cryptocurrency as a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, but just a small percentage of the banks across the U.S. that's multi-trillions of dollars of assets in the banking system. And I think as networks become more connected and banks and credit unions can settle faster and they can use this technology, and you could, for example, interact with Bitcoin with a bank in the future. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not like I have my checking account on a hardware wallet on a ledger, right? You want to keep it inside the credit union, inside the bank. I think ultimately that custody and that vision will evolve, and we'll see it in the future, because that is the model that has worked for centuries, right? We trust the bank to safeguard our assets, and we don't have to keep it at home. We don't have to keep it on a piece of paper or anything like that. And that will evolve for the crypto space as well. So we also kind of envision a time in the future where your bank or credit union may also work directly with the blockchain, in the sense that maybe you have some stable coin, you have some USDC or XMD or PayPal dollar or Paxos, what have you, and you want to deposit it into the bank, or you want to withdraw from your checking account to buy some Bitcoin or some crypto. It should be seamless. I shouldn't have to wait days. I shouldn't have to, pay huge fees. In the same way I could give you my bank account and routing information, I should be able to plug the blockchain directly into that. I should be able to deposit stable coins right into my checking account. And I think that will come about eventually. And then that's really the technology that we're trying to build.
In regards to, let's say, aside from the top four, that 80% you talked about before, are you having conversations with them? What do you think the road to adoption looks like for that? And if so, do you think it's going to be kind of like an avalanche where it's like all at once, or it'll trickle in over like the next couple of years to 10 years even?
Yeah, so we are having these conversations now, and we found amazing success in the network of credit unions and small banks. We started approaching them and saying, hey, what do you think about JP Morgan Onyx? What do you think about decentralized ledger? And a lot of them have experimented with it. But they may not have that interest of, for example, going to the number one bank and putting everything on Onyx, because that kind of feels like a road to, acquisition, right? Whereas, a lot of smaller banks want to stand out. They want to integrate newer technologies, but may not have the internal resources or the right partners to do that. So when we approached credit unions and small and mid-sized regional banks, we got an amazing reception, because we said, hey, let's build a testnet private ledger for you. You can start playing around. It's totally free. We'll experiment with that and see if there's something interesting for us to work together in crypto. And it started slow. It started with basically like two credit unions saying, okay, we'll try it. And then all of a sudden it exploded.
What was the time frame for that? Like, how long ago was that?
I would say that was probably maybe like 7 months ago, or
okay,
maybe
so
like
it's very recent. Yeah.
Yeah, it was last year, like into late last year, we started to bring on our first banking innovation partners. And after the first few came in, it was a small trickle. And like you said, then it became like an avalanche. All of a sudden, all of these credit unions and banks were interested signing up, and they were telling other bankers and other FIs about us. And today, I think we have maybe 10 or so announced, and we have a lot more in the pipeline that we haven't announced yet. It takes a little while with banks because they kind of move slowly.
Right.
But yeah, I'd imagine that by next year, it will be, could be over 100 banks in the network officially announced. And I do think it will move very quickly because it's hard because it's, who goes first, right? Who's willing to kind of take that chance? And then as that evolves, it starts to snowball. And I think avalanche is the perfect word. I think that you're going to see 5 years from now, you'll see every bank, every credit union have some sort of private ledger, blockchain technology integrated. And it's our hope that we can do it with Metal blockchain, the technology that we built, because we really want, again, something that's interoperable where the banks can communicate with each other. And we like the superchain because it has that same kind of functionality between Ethereum, optimistic rollups. And then in Metal blockchain, you have your banking subnets, and those can all talk to each other. So once we bridge these two, I think, the sky's the limit in terms of, you look at like what Coinbase and Robinhood have done for crypto in terms of adoption, institutional adoption. I think it's only begun. I think in the future, a lot of payment systems, maybe all of them, will be running on some form of decentralized and private ledger.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of transpires. And hopefully we could have another conversation where you update me on the hundreds of banks and other institutions that are now working with you guys down the line. I'm excited to see how that pans out, because I do think we're kind of at that inflection point where it just is a matter of like one push, and then it's hopefully smooth sailing for you guys.
It was pretty crazy because, after we got the first couple in the cohort, all of a sudden it was like, 5 more showed up, and then 5 more showed up.
Yeah, they just got to see someone else go through the door first, and then they're like, okay.
Exactly. I think the other thing too is that on the regulatory front, we're starting to get to the very beginning of having guidance like Fit 21, the NCUA.
And it makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, the NCUA has been very supportive of the idea of, they're the regulator in the credit union space, of the idea of blockchains. In 2020, the OCC wrote regulatory memos that banks can run nodes and create stable coins. And so those are kind of like the early, hints that we are going to move in this direction. And here are some forward-thinking memos and thoughts from regulators. But flash forward 5 years from now, I think things will be much more concrete. And as that regulatory landscape also evolves, you're going to see the floodgates open even more exponentially, I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on that. Regulation is a definitely important factor for a lot of these traditional institutions to consider coming in. But Marshall, as we wrap this up, I'd love to know if you could leave us with a piece of advice, maybe something you've carried with you throughout your extensive time in the crypto industry.
Yeah, I give this advice a lot, but I always say for anybody coming into crypto, no matter what you're doing, whether you're trading, you're just, buying your first Bitcoin, learn about it. Don't worry about trying to make profits or, what you should trade or do. Learn how it works, and play with it. Get the book Mastering Ethereum by Andreas Antonopoulos. Take a Solidity 101 course, even if you've never programmed or anything before. Learn about crypto, because through learning about it, all of the value that you saw, you'll get back tenfold.
I love that. Marshall, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Anytime. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully I can come back soon. Cheers.
100%. Awesome.